On TV, Martin Brundle can't believe what he's seeing. Is that Glock, he says? Is that Glock going slowly? That's Glock!
Legendary words now. And in the McLaren garage, just before that, we knew what the task had suddenly become. So our race engineers had to tell Lewis, stop worrying about Vettel. Just follow him now, because it's raining harder now, and you may both be able to pass Glock. And that was an instruction very difficult, almost impossible, in fact, for Lewis to process. Just imagine it, in the heat of battle, because just a moment before that, his life had depended on passing Vettel. And now it had suddenly become clear that the one thing he mustn't do is try so hard to pass Vettel that he would run wide or spin or lose time in any other similar way. Because now, suddenly, the likeliest way in which he could become world champion was to follow Vettel past Glock. There just might be time and space enough for that. And then it happened. Although Hamilton had not managed to pass Vettel, Hamilton and Vettel had both managed to pass Glock. Sorry, I find it so emotional. And for us in the McLaren garage, it was the most extraordinary feeling of euphoria, indescribable, pure, unadulterated joy. I'd seen teams celebrating victory before, of course, other teams. In Formula One, yes, but also in other sports. I'd seen a player scoring the penalty that puts his team through to the World Cup final. I'd seen a player hitting the passing shot that wins him the Wimbledon Men's Singles Championship. I'd seen a batsman hitting the winning runs in an Ashes Test match. I'd seen all that. We all have such memories. And now it was happening to me, to my team. After all we've been through, I can't talk about it. As you can tell, I can't talk about it.
Would you like a little moment to yourself here?
I'm okay. But I can't talk about it without getting emotional. Even now, 17 years later, it is the most amazing thing that's ever happened to me, or I was ever present for or involved in my professional career, without a doubt, and by some margin. Because honestly, when something like that happens to you, let me tell you, decorum just goes out of the window. You shout, you whoop, you holler, you hug everyone, and you cry tears of joy. Everywhere I looked, my colleagues were hugging and crying. And Nicole Scherzinger, remember her, don't you? Yeah. Nicole Scherzinger, Lewis's girlfriend, was dancing in the pit lane, tears coursing down her cheeks. I quickly rushed to my office, which was tucked into a partitioned corner of the McLaren garage, and I rushed there because I had to dash off our post-race press release, and I did it in 5 minutes flat.
What a pro.
Suddenly and momentarily, in that task, I was alone. I could hear all the noise around, but I was entirely alone. And as I wrote the words, quote, "Today at Interlagos, Sao Paulo, Brazil, McLaren driver Lewis Hamilton won the Formula One Drivers' World Championship," I began to weep.
Well, I can well imagine, and I have to say I envy you the intensity of that experience.
It was raw.
A unique thing.
It was raw.
Yeah. But over at Ferrari, of course, things were very different. Rob Smedley, Massa's race engineer, as we said, had warned Felipe to hold his celebrations until he knew the final outcome of that battle. Massa had slowed right down, and he was going through turn 3 when he got the bad news. For 38 seconds, the gap between the Ferrari and the McLaren, the world champion's crown had hovered over his head, and then it had been whipped away. The Ferrari personnel were shattered by the news, just as you felt euphoria.
Exactly.
They felt its exact opposite.
Yeah. And I feel very sorry for them, honestly.
Sure. Wow.
Yeah.
And you remember a TV camera caught one of the mechanics in such a paroxysm of furious disappointment that he headbutted the garage wall, doing more damage to the garage than to himself, I believe.
That little scene is sporting drama in the raw, isn't it?
Yeah, indeed. And then when Massa gets out of his car and removes his helmet, he's in tears too, just like you, but for a very different reason. What a sad way to end a perfect performance in front of a full house of his home supporters. But he doesn't headbutt any walls. Instead, although he's still in tears on the podium, he offers an object lesson in sportsmanship.
Lewis wasn't on the podium, of course, because he hadn't finished in the top 3. So Ron Dennis said to me, "Lewis is all yours. Get as much TV coverage as you possibly can." So we made Lewis available to you guys too, of course, the print reporters. But first we had to service the TV crews whose broadcasts were still going out live. So I took Lewis from TV crew to TV crew, and he did interview after interview, all smiles, lost in the sheer elation of the moment, struggling for the right words to describe his exultation, but definitely, incredibly, abidingly happy. Then, as I was guiding him from TV crew to TV crew, jostling him through the unruly media throng, our bodies, I remember it so well, our bodies bumping and thudding against a jockeying cluster of bulky cameras and big boom mics, a little figure in red began to squeeze its way through the crush, eventually making its way to the front. It was Massa. It was Massa. He extended his right hand to Lewis and said, "Congratulations, Lewis, well done." They shook hands. Hamilton's face, which had been wreathed in visible and unmistakable joy just an instant before, took on a momentarily sombre look. I remember what he said. He just said, "That was impressive."